Well, hello friends, and welcome to Cherry Scary Art. Wanted to kick things off on this channel by going through something I just completed. I have finished my first ever watercolor sketchbook and wanted to kind of do a little sketchbook tour to kind of give people an idea of where I'm starting off as an artist and where I think I have some room to go. So this sketchbook was started in June of 2020. I kind of had picked up watercolor as kind of a quarantine activity, this year being as crazy as it is. I had already been doing some calligraphy, and it had been recommended by a tutorial I was watching that you could play with watercolors as a way to accent your calligraphy, and I've almost flipped the whole other way. I'm not doing a ton of calligraphy right now. I've been focusing on watercolors. I find both to be extremely relaxing and soothing, especially when life gets a little stressful, so that is what I have been up to. So this first spread here is of characters from a RPG campaign. A bunch of friends and I are playing a game of Monster Hearts, which is basically teenage supernatural creatures who are also all high school students, and the drama and time that they have thereof. So this is the 4 members of our party. I can't even call it a party because it's not like your traditional adventuring party, but we have Baron, the musician, who is trying to be a, artist, loves his rock music, but his parents are lawyers and he's supposed to be studying classical guitar. Cassandra, our witch, who has basically is the scholarship student, kind of doesn't fit in this high-end art school. Celine, who is our fae, who has just discovered that the reason she doesn't quite understand humans is because she's not actually human. And then finally Trevor, our ghost, who just found out recently that he is actually dead. It's a fun time. Oh, forgot to mention that Baron is indebted to some kind of supernatural entity known as Mr. Pinstripe, who is enabling his powers. It's been a fun time. If you ever want to play out teen drama plus supernatural abilities, Monster Hearts might be worth a look. Next up, we have the flowers here. This was actually a bush that was growing on the dumpster at our old apartment. I loved the deep purple flowers against the green background with the wood. Had a lot of fun painting this. I think I really am happy with how the wood texture came out, and there was a lot that I was trying to get in there, so very excited about how this one came out. And then a few months ago I went to the zoo for a day, had a lot of fun taking pictures of a bunch of different animals, and used a couple of them for reference. So this is, I honestly don't remember what kind of lizard this is, but I loved the blue and green accents that they had, and had a little bit of fun painting him. I also got super into Animal Crossing. This is the first of quite a bit of video game art. I love games outside of my other hobbies. So we have a little moment on the beach here. Would love to redo this again at some point in the future. I was really struggling with kind of the art style and kind of capturing what makes Animal Crossing feel so special. But it was still a fun experiment with lots of color, loved the sunset. And would love to give this a go again as I get stronger. This is probably one of the first pages where it was a little bit more exercise practice. Wanted to play around with some leaf shapes, and came up with these little ferns that I think came out super cute. And then this was a tutorial from Camilla Damsco Art. She has put out a series of little watercolor beginner tutorials, playing around with wet on wet techniques, and got a cool starry night sky with some shadows. Really love how this one came out. And this was another one that I should probably revisit her tutorial because I have now learned how my watercolors behave a little bit more. This was a little tulip, and I think I'd like to give it a little try so I don't overwork as much. I think I have a tendency to be like, oh, if I just add a little bit more shadow there, a little bit more something here, and then I go, oh, I did too much. It's a lesson, and I feel like it's any watercolorist's ongoing struggle to figure out where the heck to stop. some more fun kind of exercises. This was from Arlisha Yeltzer's Skillshare course. Arlisha, or Arlabine on YouTube, is fantastic. I love her stuff. She's been a huge inspiration for me, and have really enjoyed kind of playing around with some of her exercises. This was, you know, painting blobs and turning them into things, so I have a whole bunch of different faces here. I love my little gerbil. I don't know what kind of creature that is, but adorable. Maybe guinea pig. That feels very guinea pig to me. So it was kind of fun to do something a little more cartoony for a change. I actually really like this guy's face as well, if that will zoom for me, maybe. There he is. So kind of a fun way to play with some different faces. This was some experiments in blending. I tried to pick the most high contrast colors I could. I want to say this is like my phthalo green and you know, pyrrole red, I think is what was on my palette at the time. So just kind of playing around with how different colors blend and how they interact with each other, especially when you're dealing with a ton of contrast here. And then this was a final exercise. You were supposed to depict a mood, and I put stressed here. So you're supposed to play with colors that kind of evoked the mood, shapes, kind of playing with color. I was definitely getting some stress out on this page. This next page was part of a in liquid color challenge. She's been doing kind of an alphabet challenge where each month they focus on a different type or category of animal. This month, I believe, had been yellow. We were supposed to play with something, an animal that had the word yellow in its name. So this is a yellow-bellied turtle. Yellow-bellied slider, I think, is the official one. Really happy with how the lines and splotches came out. At the time I didn't have a whole lot of detail brushes, so I think I could do a little bit more detailed now, but even that, I think I really was happy with how it came out based off the reference. And then we get into the portraiture. This is what a lot of the rest of the sketchbook is. I've spent a lot of time as I've learned watercolor, playing around with different subject matter, and I find that I've really enjoyed doing people and faces. I think it's one of those things where I always, growing up, when I would doodle and draw, I always would come back to people. I would try drawing other things, but I would always come back to humans. So I think it makes sense that that's kind of where I landed with watercolor as well. So this was kind of a little study that I then turned into a watercolor kind of thumbnail. Trying to learn shading has definitely been a struggle, and you'll see throughout the rest of this book some things worked better than others. But I'm excited to kind of learn more and practice more as I go. Here is another role-playing game character. She will show up a couple times because I need to keep my hands busy during our online games in order to keep myself awake and paying attention. So a lot of times I am painting and doodling as we go. This is Lena Marchwood, proprietor of the Marchwood Inn, or, you know, used to be. Obviously, adventuring took over and caused her to leave home with her friends. So this was my first attempt at painting her. I'm going to hide this page because it's got a nice little address on it, but we bought a house this summer, and as a result I painted our little home, and we're going to send out little notice to everyone saying, hey, here's our new address if you need it. And then this was another, I found this reference image. I thought it was really, really interesting. It was kind of this woman lying down listening to music. Loved the headphones, and it was a kind of play with her hair moment. I think hair is definitely something I struggle with and need to work on a little bit more. So if you know of any good hair tutorials, please let me know, because I would appreciate the help. Oop. Sneak preview of a few future pages. I've also been participating in the sketchbook challenge. That was actually how I completed this, through Victoria Gedvelius's Patreon, and every week they were posting reference images for us to play with, so this was one of those references. This was my kind of first experiment with doing texture in clothing and getting shading right. I'm really happy with how the shading on her dress up here came out. A lot more happy with this one than this one. I think I keep trying to put a ton of detail in these small paintings, and I really don't think that works for me. So I think my next sketchbook is going to be a little bit larger format. That way I can play around with it a little bit more and get into those details while actually being able to paint them. Hey, Lena's back. She's got a sword now. Hooray! Yay! Our villagers now are slowly turning into adventurers, and as a result have been learning the ways of fighting. So Lena now has a rapier and is a bit of a duelist. This was kind of fun because I was kind of trying to put some dirt and grime on her, as she has now been getting into a little bit of trouble as a lot of evil forces of chaos have been taking over the world, and she's discovered she needs to fight back. Here's some little flower practice. Really happy with how the two on the end came out. Got a little carried away in the middle and resulted in some muddy colors, and not really thinking through how that was going to play. I don't think my paint was quite dry, so I got a lot of bleed. It happens, and that's what sketchbooks are for, learning and making these mistakes and getting through them. Here's some more video game art. I absolutely love the game Journey. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Super simple, super beautiful game. And one of my favorite YouTubers has been doing a Let's Play of it. So as they were playing, I was painting. So we've got our little journeyer sitting in their meditation spot. Another portrait, a fun little reference image I found on Pinterest. I loved the texture in the shirt, so I really tried to kind of embrace that and try that out. I think I was pretty successful with the shirt. I think I need to work on some face angles. I also need to work on some facial expressions because everyone kind of has the same stone-faced glare right now. So we're going to work on getting some variety going on as I learn and grow. But I am pretty happy with how her skin tones came out, so I will give myself that. And then here's some more fan art. This is from Friends at the Table. I would call this Would the Princess Like to Learn How to Farm? We have two of the characters from the most recent season interacting, one of whom is a little bit of a spoiled rich kid who has been handed everything to her, and the other is a worker robot who has gained sentience and is trying to figure out where she came from. And turns out she's got some farming history, so she's trying to teach everyone how to grow their own food. Here we have another reference photo from the sketchbook challenge. Really love this one. I'm really happy with how her kind of shoulders came out. I think I got some really great shading in there. Worked the face a little bit too much, but overall really happy with this one. And it was also fun trying to get some of this pattern onto her dress as well. Overall really happy with how this one came out. And then this one, I realized I kind of never fully painted. This was just a sketch. As we moved, I wanted to make a little sign for our Wi-Fi so you knew exactly what the password was. So I found these birds on a wire, and then there's two who don't, and therefore they have Wi-Fi. It's funny, it's cute, and then of course I practiced painting some of the birds to get some bright colors in there to make it a little more fun. Over here we have another sketchbook challenge reference photo. I don't do profiles that often because I find that proportions are hard. Hands are also hard. Again, a couple things that I can work on going forward. But overall, I think I love the colors I got in here. But there's some work to be done. Some wispies of hair, and I'm still learning, so that's very important. This was another experimental disaster. I have some masking fluid that I wanted to play around with and see what I could do with, and ended up destroying the page instead. Oops. I kind of had tried to do some layering, put down masking fluid to kind of mask off certain areas, peeled it away, and then decided to do a second layer of masking fluid. I guess you're not supposed to do that. Lesson learned, mistakes were made, I destroyed this page. So then I tried it again, minus the masking fluid, and just tried to do it, you know, kind of how I would normally, and this came out so much better. I love the kind of fade I got around the edges, so it kind of feels like it's glowing. And this was for Games Done Quick this summer, which is an annual charity speedrunning marathon, raising money for various charities. They do it twice a year, so it was kind of nice to give it a go with their logo. Over here, Lena's back again. Kind of wanted to play around with a dueling coat, and I originally didn't paint the background in here, and then I came back through and added it. I think I love the brick texture that I kind of got on the wall there, as well as a little bit of the grass. This was another kind of experiment in shading. And then this was something completely different. I didn't actually use normal traditional watercolors instead. I have some of the Arteza brush pens, which I had bought originally for calligraphy, discovered they weren't so good for calligraphy, and then I saw a video tutorial where it kind of explained how you could use these for kind of a watercolor-like texture where you just add water and blend them out. So wanted to play around with them again. I think I need to try this technique again in the future because I really like how some of this came out, but I clearly need some practice, different tools, different way of working, so it's something I will have to revisit in the future. Here was another reference photo challenge of a skull, feeling a little spooky. We're getting into Halloween season, but it was kind of nice to kind of pay attention to something that's a little bit more monotone, paying attention to what gets shading, and I think I'm really happy with how this came out. I can't say it's something I have painted too frequently, but it was kind of a fun little experiment on how to draw a head. And then we have quite a few little thumbnail portraits coming up here. These were just some practice faces that I then went through and painted to try to get some different colors of skin tone. Some more successful than the other. I think she came out really well. I kind of like how his hair came out, but I also think some of these spots are a little bit overworked. I'm still learning what some of these terms mean, but pretty happy with how they came out in general. More fan art from our D&D campaign. Lena is engaged to my in real life husband's character, so Lena and Jasper hanging out, being cool people. Another video game fan art. This is from the game Spiritfarer, which is on quite a few systems. It's a cute little game where you are just enjoying helping people pass on to the next world. You have a bunch of animal spirits that you're inviting onto your boat, sailing around the world, helping them fulfill their last requests, and you snuggle up every night in this cozy little cabin. Another reference image, this was all monochrome, which was kind of a fun little experiment to kind of pay attention to shades and tones, rather than worrying about colors so much. Probably need to do this more often so I can learn my shadows and shading. This probably will be a good exercise to repeat a little bit more often. And then this was actually the art. I use a Magic the Gathering playmat as my mouse pad most of the time. And this, I don't actually know what character it is. I just bought it because it looked cool. And this angel-like character has been staring at me for months, and I finally decided to give her a go at painting her, and I'm pretty happy with how she came out. This was a fun experiment into learning how to paint metal textures and getting a little sheen and shine on things, and breaking down some of that. So pretty happy with how she came out. And then we have 2 pages of just kind of loose brush painting. Did some loose florals with a little bit of ink texture on it. Really happy with how these came out. And then I was also feeling some fall leaves, so wanted to play around with leaf shapes, trying to see what kind of textures and things I could get, playing with different colors. And that was just kind of a fun little, hey, let's just kill a page, playing around, seeing what happens. This was actually a redraw. I should have grabbed the original character art. This was my RPG character back in college, which was a few years ago. So this was an RPG character I played back in college. Decided to give her another go and paint her in my current style, and just kind of see how I have progressed over the years. So it was kind of cool revisiting her. She was from a campaign of Numenera, where she was a mystical nano, so basically someone who had an affinity for the weird technology of the world, who talks to machines. She was good at talking to robots and made quite a few robot friends by the end of the campaign. I also got super into Blazeball, which is this weird, surreal baseball simulator online game. I had to pick my team, and my team was the Yellowstone Magic, who is a team that plays out of Yellowstone National Park, and their motto is "As above, so below." So I tried to recreate one of the hot springs in Yellowstone. This was kind of an interesting experiment in blending. Some things were a little more successful than others, and then also incorporated their team model. And then we have the entire crew from our current D&D campaign. You've seen Lena and Jasper before. I've kind of redone them. Really happy with how Jasper came out this time. Love the shading I got on his face, the curls in his hair. Really, really happy with that. They also all are the chosen champions of the patron saints of the world, so they are all partnered up with their patrons. We also have Uchi, who is our bee-barian. She is a shapeshifter who turns into a bee-themed fighter. So that is her. We've got Luther, who is our very sad woodcarver turned paladin. And then the rest of the crew, we have Omar, who is our town doctor, who is now a little bit of a rogue. Mary, who is our grey mage, and then Gwen, who is Gwenestry, who is our kind of druidy kind of character. We're all playing custom classes that our DM has created for us, which has been a lot of fun, as he's kind of like taken what our characters have gotten up to and customized something based on their story so far. Another portrait, this was another experiment in shading. She had really bright sunlight on one side of her face, and then everything else was in shadow. So it was, again, a little bit of an experiment in shading. I think I need to work on my shadow tones because they really tend to get really muddy really quickly. So trying to find that balance between darkening things without sacrificing a ton of color will be an interesting challenge going forward. More Spiritfarer art. I loved the Everdoor. Every time you brought someone to the gate that lets them move on to the next world. Beautiful animation. I loved the colors of this area, so really tried to capture those as I was painting. And then we are reaching the final stretch, the last three. We've got this is Eurydice from the video game Hades, which is you battling your way out of Hades itself. You're the son of Hades, who basically found out that his entire life was a lie, and you're trying to find the truth. But your dad is kind of treating you like a snotty teenager, because you kind of are a snotty teenager, and standing in your way, so you are fighting your way out of hell again and again and again. And one of the characters you meet is Eurydice of mythology. She is an excellent wood nymph, and I love her art style. The entire game has amazing character designs, and have really, really been enjoying playing it. I still can't beat it. I have been playing it for over a year and a half now, and it's a work in progress. I am not the most skilled player, so I am definitely just fighting my way out of hell a lot. This was another reference image. Wanted to play around with textures. I liked the idea of someone wearing a poofy, floofy fur kind of shoulder cape thing. Kind of stumbled across a reference image that I found inspiring and got to play around with. Pretty happy with her hair and expression, and I love the texture I got on her fur shawl. So this was kind of a fun one to do. And then if you recall at the very beginning, I had painted the characters from our Monster Hearts campaign, so I figured for the last page of the sketchbook, I revisit one of them. So I took my own character, Cassandra, and repainted her one more time just to see how far I'd come. Obviously, I have learned a ton throughout the sketchbook. I am paying more attention to shading, and my characters are not so one-dimensional and single tone. So it was really great to see how far I'd come, and I'm really excited to see where my art goes next. So that is my fun little sketchbook tour. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to be posting some paint-alongs as the plan, as well as maybe some calligraphy stuff in the future as well. So join me, won't you? Give me a little subscribe, hit that like if you enjoyed this sketchbook tour and would like to see more stuff like this in the future. Thanks for joining. Talk to you soon.